Okay, so I'm really excited to record this video because for the last 6 months, I have been doing some extensive traveling. A part of that is because I am in a relationship, long distance with my boyfriend in New York. And the other part of that is also because I had set the intention for 2023 to be my year of travel. 2023 and 2024, I wanted to be out here. I wanted to be seeing the world. And so I hope you guys will journey with me. As part of that experience, I will be sharing many vlogs to come. But today's video, in theme with travel, is the 10 ways to travel on a budget. I actually also wrote a blog post on this. You can check that out in the description if you prefer to read it versus watching me and listening to me, but who wouldn't prefer to watch me and listen to me? So you got it right here. So whether you love traveling or you gotta travel to visit family or for whatever reason, at some point, I think we all have traveled, whether it's domestically or internationally. Some people actually haven't been on a plane, but you don't need to hop on a plane to travel too. That's another misconception. So in some way or form, I am pretty sure that you have left the confines of your neighborhood and gone to some other unknown territory for the sake of pleasure and fun or meeting and connecting with other people, whatever your reason may be, or even just a retreat, whatever the reason may be. There are some definite things that you're gonna wanna do when you wanna travel on a budget. And actually, I think traveling on a budget regardless, like for me, I think it helps to travel on a budget for certain areas of your travel expenses because then it allows you to spend more money on the areas that are actually more important to you. I'll probably do another video on like minimalism and how minimalism, god damn, is it also a tongue twister for you too? Because I can never say it properly. Anyways, minimalism. I wanted to create a video, and I probably will create a video in the future on minimalism and how it has actually helped me to travel on a budget and actually save more while I travel. So stay tuned for that one. If you do want that, please let me know in the comments below. But let's give it a go. So the first way to save, I guess, when you're traveling is to plan ahead. Some people don't like planning ahead. Well, then sucks TBU, you're not gonna be saving as much, right? When you have a place in mind, the best thing to do is to book that flight as soon as possible and as far out as possible. Most likely because the flights are gonna be cheaper. Way cheaper. Also, it'll give you time to do more research and better figure out like what the activities are gonna be when you get there in terms of food, what your accommodation is gonna look like. And when you're able to better prepare, you're gonna make better decisions, right? You're not making last minute impulsive decisions that are gonna end up costing you more in the long run. So start with a budget, plan ahead, book those flights and accommodations as well too. Airbnb has a really great payment system depending on the Airbnb owner where you can pay half up front and then the other half a bit closer to the date, especially when you plan farther out in advance. So also I like to pay attention to the cancellation policies. I prefer, if I am booking farther out in advance, to find an accommodation that does have a really flexible cancellation policy because things can change when you are planning out far in advance. So that's just one thing I also would be mindful of, but please plan ahead and use, comparison sites. Hopper is a great app that I love to use, and I'll put all of these resources in the description below, but Hopper is a great app that I use. It's really the first app that I use to look at flights and figure out like what are the best times, what are the best days to fly out, and finding the cheapest options. 2, kind of a no-brainer, but you're obviously going to want to travel during off-peak season. If you are traveling to Italy in the summer, everyone's going to Italy in the summer. So maybe you may do the unconventional thing and go to Italy in the winter time, right? Flights are technically supposed to be cheaper. There's definitely less traffic in and out of the airports, just a lot less chaos. Even the tourist attractions that you go to would be less busy than normal, which would give you more of an opportunity to truly take in the experience versus when there's just so many people around you, hustle and bustle, you don't really get to take it in as much and you don't feel as relaxed while you're on the trip. So I definitely would try to avoid peak tourist seasons And other off-peak opportunities would be to fly during the weekday instead of the weekends. Everyone's flying on a Saturday or Sunday because most people have work during the week. Then maybe, try to use up their vacation time in a way where they leave on the weekend and can also come back on the weekend and take less vacation days. So whatever the tactic is, it really is best to book during the weekday if you can. And traveling during those shoulder seasons where there is a balance of good weather, that's something that you also want to be mindful of. So just because it is off-peak season, it may not be the best season to go to that specific country based on what you want to do. That's something that you'd want to be mindful of, but generally, traveling during off-peak season is definitely going to be cheaper. Third, be flexible with the dates. This is something we've already talked about in terms of booking flights, but this can also be applicable to the accommodations that you're choosing. Actually, depending how long you are staying somewhere, this is especially for digital nomads. If you are staying somewhere, it's probably best to stay for a month or more. I find when I compare the search of staying somewhere for 2 weeks versus a month, you probably are paying less if you consider the month versus just the 2 weeks. Sometimes some Airbnb owners will actually give you a discount for staying longer. So those are little tricks and hacks that you can look at if you are more of a digital nomad and you are able to stay somewhere for a longer period of time. And don't be afraid to shift your travel dates, right, as well. Try to be flexible, as flexible as you can. And that will definitely save you in the long run. 4, opt for more budget forms of accommodation, right? So I like to look at hostels, but I know hostels isn't everybody's thing. I did hostels more when I was younger. I didn't really care about crashing with other random strangers. Sometimes as you get older, you want more for peace of mind. You want to come back to your hotel room or whatever accommodation and not have to deal with other people. It's just your own space where you can relax and take in your travels in the way that feels best in alignment to you. But there are certain cities, there are certain places in the world where it can be very expensive for accommodation, but you still want to go there. And I think accommodation is the easiest way to reduce some of your travel expenses if you can get creative. So looking at hostels, sharing, a dorm type of room with other people. If you're a female and you feel uncomfortable, maybe sharing with the opposite sex, then I would say, you can find an all-female dorm as well, if that makes you feel more comfortable. Guest houses tend to be a bit cheaper, so just directly finding places to stay with locals. Even outside of Airbnb, you might get away with finding even cheaper options because Airbnb is, let's be real, it's starting to become expensive. It's probably even more expensive than a hotel or just as expensive now. So I think a lot of people are probably going to start looking at alternative options as well. But Couchsurfing is an app that I recently discovered this year, and you pay $5 a month up front, or you can pay $25 for the year or something like that, this one flat fee. But on this app, you have access to a bunch of other travelers, travel enthusiasts who are willing to give up their homes for free and are willing to allow you to stay in their homes for a limited amount of time. Some people may not feel comfortable with this. I remember telling a family friend about this and they were like, that sounds dangerous, because you don't know who you're staying with. But on the app, there are definitely ways that you can safely vet people, reviews, references, seeing who people's friends are. I think it's a great way for me to determine if I would want to stay at someone's place. Preferably, I would probably like to also stay at a woman's place. So there are certain things that you can, do to feel safer, especially as a woman, a visible minority woman as well who is traveling, to feel safer. And a lot of the times you can offer to do something for the host, right? So you can offer to cook or garden. There's also another option called house sitting, where people will actually allow you to stay in their homes when they leave for a vacation because they need someone to take care of their pets or just to clean or take care of their plants, whatever it may be. So there are so many other alternatives out there that allow you to lean on community to be more resourceful without having to dish out money up front. And I completely am obsessed and love that idea. And so if you can get Couchsurfing to work for you, I would definitely check that app out. 5, pack light, guys. Please pack light. I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but if you can get away with it with just traveling with a carry-on, your life will be forever changed. I traveled with my carry-on for 3 straight months to Mexico, LA, New Zealand, Australia. Last stop was Bali, and just a carry-on, guys. Just honestly, I am gonna say I was stretching it towards the end, and I was kind of a little bit regretting my decision. I was being really extreme with my decision to just travel with a carry-on, but I still made it happen. And it actually allowed me to spend less. And it was a great excuse as to why I probably couldn't bring as much souvenirs back for people because I had limited space. But really, packing light is gonna save you in terms of baggage fees. It's gonna save you in terms of time. So not only money, but you don't gotta be, you know, in and out of airports looking for a check bag or waiting for a check bag before you can leave the airport. A great example of this is on my way back to Toronto from Bali, I had a stop in South Korea. And if I had a check bag, I probably would not leave that airport. But because I had my carry-on and I had like 6-7 hours before the next flight was gonna arrive so that I could head to New Jersey, which was gonna be my next stop, or New York, and then Toronto, I was able to leave the airport, and it wasn't as much of a stressful experience for me because I only had like my backpack and my carry-on, and I could manage that. If I had a huge check bag with me, I would probably be crying. And who knows, maybe that would have held me back from getting back to the airport on time because I was cutting it real close, right? So those are some other perks and benefits to traveling light. Also, when you pack light, you're only packing the essentials. So you're not spending all this money on like, I need this, I need that. I think one thing to be mindful of is most accommodations usually have like towels and soaps. And I know like the guest house I stayed in Bali, she was super nice, but I got there and she would like replenish my water every couple days, bottled water, toothpaste, toothbrush, like, and it was really cheap stay, right? But she treated me really well. And I feel like that's sort of the basics for any kind of hospitality industry, especially when it comes to accommodations. Like you will get your shampoo and conditioner. It may not be the shampoo and conditioner that you want, but you know, if you're trying to budget and you're trying to be as cheap as possible, forget about packing all of that. You can even buy those things when you get to that specific country. And if anything, it actually might be cheaper if you buy it in that country versus buying it here and then bringing it with you. So those are other like little travel hacks and things that you will benefit from if you were to pack light. 6, eat like a local. So Bali is another great example. They have these local restaurants called warangs, and I could have chosen to eat at fancy restaurants every day, restaurants that offered dishes that weren't authentic to the country. So, you know, I can get Italian, Western food, Greek, whatever I wanted, even Nigerian. I think there was a Nigerian restaurant in Bali. Like I could have had Nigerian if I wanted, but I knew that it would be a lot more expensive than just eating what the locals eat. And I think it's also a great way to experience the culture and really immerse yourself in the experience. And so I would go to local warangs and they were way cheaper. I'd spend like maybe $2 to $5, $10 max if it was like a bougie warang on my meals versus going to like a Grilled, which is a popular restaurant in Australia, which I love. But if I go there, I'm spending the typical $20 on a meal, maybe even more. So definitely eating at local restaurants is gonna save you in the long run, especially if it's if it's a less developed country, the currency is not that great, you can definitely get away with eating at local restaurants and saving a lot more money. 7 is public transportation. So definitely using the bus, walking around if you can rent a bike. Bali is another great example. They have their scooters. Some people like to rent their scooters while they're there as tourists and drive around, although I highly don't recommend it. But what I did when I was there was I would hire scooter drivers. So instead of a taxi driver, scooter drivers were much, much cheaper, and it's probably faster to get around with because you can kind of just zoom in and out of the cars. That was a really cool experience. But anywhere that I am, I really try to just like walk to somewhere, great physical activity, great exercise for the day to get my steps up so I can, you know, eat as much as I want, but still try to look good because I'm burning it off at the same time. And really consider like city passes and stuff too so that you can get like unlimited rides and discounts to certain attractions, things like that can also be very beneficial. I have used rental cars. I do use like Ubers and Lyfts, or the Ubers and Lyfts of that country. Sometimes it may be called something different. It's like in Bali, it's called Grab or Gojek. So some countries have their own kind of versions of it. I would use those platforms as well. But if you can walk, great way to also immerse yourself in the culture, meet the locals, see the city from a different perspective, versus just calling Ubers and taxis all the time to get around. 8. So everyone's a bit different when they travel. They travel for different reasons. Some people are more foodie. Some people like to do the touristy attractions. Some people just really go to just be in that environment, and the accommodations more important. For myself, I think it's all of the above. Mainly the tourist attractions. I really love to learn about the history and understand the culture. So, you know, I'm someone that's going to the museums and parks, and some of these activities are actually free. You can find like local tour guides that like, you know, do like tip-based donations, and they'll walk you around the city. A lot of museums can be free as well, depending on the popularity and the novelty of the museum. Certain attractions. So finding free activities first before you start paying for the high-end activities. And just reminding yourself too that if you are traveling on a budget, you don't have to see everything when you go to that country. I think it's something that I'm practicing when I travel, like not to get caught up in the FOMO of like, I have to tick everything off my list. And actually, I find you get really burnt out by doing that, because every day you have something scheduled and you get really tired and burnt out. Like, you know, hopping from one city to the next, different accommodations to the next, like it doesn't give you time to really just enjoy being in the moment and really taking in what a city or a town or that local municipal region or environment has to offer you. So I would also highly suggest, like, you know, not having to jam pack your trips with activities, reminding yourself that you can come back another time. I know I'll go to Mexico another time. I'm definitely going to Bali again sometime soon, or, you know, in the near future. I'm planning to have a long life. So if I got like another 80 years to go, like I'll go back to that same country that I really love and be able to see more. It's not running away from you. 9, travel insurance. I'm not sure if there's ways that you can find cheaper travel insurance other than, of course, comparing the rates that are out there. So just not choosing the travel insurance that is like the first thing given to you. I know all the times like airlines like to give you travel insurance. I preferably don't like to go with airlines. I don't think it's as comprehensive. So I either go through my bank, or there are other insurance companies that are out there. We have insurance companies like Safety Wing or World Nomads that offer really comprehensive plans for people that are constantly traveling and constantly on the go. So I definitely would look at those options as well. And last but not least, number 10, using the local currency. So of course, there's a lot of fees that can add up if you're constantly exchanging money. So taking out as much money as you can before you go on the trip, as much money as you think that you're going to use, so that when you do get to that country, you don't have to continuously take out more money and have to deal with more fees. Try to use the local currency to pay for things, the activities, your accommodation if you can ahead of time. Usually you have to pay before you get there, but definitely your activities, food, things like that could be used with the local currency. And definitely try to set a daily budget. So if you know your budget before heading on this trip was $1,500, try to check in with yourself by the end of the day, depending how long you're going for. I would say like if you're going for 3 days, you can easily check that, you know, at least once in the evening before you go to bed or something like that. If you're going for like 2 weeks, maybe you could check in less often, but the more you check in with yourself on the trip, the less surprises you'll have when you come back. I remember going to New York earlier this January for my birthday, and I was really surprised at how well I did by sticking with my $1,500 budget. Like $1,500 in New York is like probably unheard of. If anyone could do better than that, please let me know. But I'm talking also like outside of hotel and flight. So actually probably everything came out to like $2,000, and the most I spent on like food and activities came out to be $1,000 for that week. And mind you, I'm eating out every day. So to be able to spend just $1,000 in New York for that week, I think was very very courageous with me, but I was able to do it. And that was because periodically I would just check in with myself and be like, okay, how much have I spent so far on this kind of food? Actually, I lied. So the hotel that we stayed at did have a kitchenette. So that was actually a way that we did try to save. And that brings up a good point, a really great point in terms of accommodation as well. If you are staying in any kind of accommodation, I think the best way to save is to also find a place that has a kitchen. I know some people don't want to cook when they're on vacation, that's fine. But if I'm traveling on a budget, to be honest, I probably make better food anyways. And I'm gonna save more if I just go and get my groceries and cook mainly for myself. I'm not saying that I never go out and eat out, but if I'm eating out breakfast, lunch, and dinner for like 2 weeks, that's gonna be like twice as much as the rent that you're paying for. So I like to personally have a kitchen where I can just make like quick breakfast items in the morning, because breakfast is like super easy to make and the ingredients are usually like super cheap. You literally can buy like milk and a cereal box and that could be your breakfast like every day for a week straight. It doesn't have to be complicated. So I think just like having a little kitchenette to make those like quick little breakfast items, even leftovers from like restaurants or meals, I can reheat it the next day and still enjoy it. So I definitely think it's worth spending a little bit more money on the accommodation and having a kitchen versus not having a kitchen and having to eat out every single day. Figure it out, do the math. It actually might work out better, but I definitely would, do the math and see what makes more sense, what areas you're willing to compromise on, what areas are more important to you, and where are you willing to spend less in one area so that you have more in another area. How are you willing to spend less in all areas in general, because this is a budget trip. If any of these tips were helpful, you know what to do. Please like, please subscribe, and click that little bell dingy button so you're the first to know when a new video drops. And please comment below, where have you traveled this year? What are some of your travel hacks, tips on saving more money as you travel and traveling on a budget? Please let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video.